Autodesk is the leading provider of design solutions for manufacturing, architectural, the building industry, infrastructure, and then media and entertainment.
What we do is provide a set of software tools that enables our customers to express their ideas that are in their heads digitally and then coordinate all of the work to bring those ideas to life.
Microsoft's mission is to enable people and businesses throughout the world to realize their full potential. We're about enabling the businesses and individuals that we serve to do a better job.
SOM Skidmore, Owings & Merrill was founded nearly 70 years ago, and our mission always has been design excellence. The Freedom Tower project is not business as usual. The design and the eventual construction of this project is so significant, particularly here in the New York office, just a few blocks away from Ground Zero.
SOM and the Freedom Tower project represent the use of our technologies in what we call creating, managing, and sharing design information for a mission-critical project. Autodesk provided a range of solutions that help the SOM folks create their architectural vision of the building, manage all of the information relating to that project, and then share it with an extended design team. DWF leverages open technologies from the Microsoft platform, including things such as XML, to preserve the complexity of the design information, but then make it compact and secure in order to convey or communicate that idea with people that essentially don't have design software but are interested and are essential in terms of looking at the information.
DWF provides the foundation for project lifecycle management. So when we look at projects like the Freedom Tower, the combination of the Microsoft platform and DWF allows our customers to more effectively manage their projects.
SOM obviously has been able to reduce costs. They've been able to increase their productivity, do more with less, and then also manage what is a very complex design, be able to look at various alternatives in a shorter period of time.
I can see information flowing through the entire construction phase, easily translating this information back and forth, moving it around, us marking up information. Information and exchange that used to be marked up on thousands of sheets of paper, printed, transmitted, lost, now being held in one place, access to the entire team.
We have approximately 150 project team members distributed across approximately 9 different firms. Some of the problems we might face would be collaborating on design documents, not only internally, but between all these different firms that are not only in different time zones, but in completely different parts of the world. We would have a typical 5-day turnaround for requests for information. With Autodesk Buzzsaw and DWF, we're able to cut that down to perhaps 1-day turnaround.
We're picking up efficiency and we're picking up quality. I think that the full benefits aren't yet realized because we're still in the early phases of the project.
Running Autodesk design applications on the Microsoft platforms enable us to do things that we never could do before.
The world has its eyes on this building, and so the margin of error is very small.
It's a terrific collaboration. It's a partnership among 3 leaders, and that's what it takes to move technology ahead.
Autodesk and Microsoft have had a long-standing and very successful partnership. The Freedom Tower is one of the most important and anticipated buildings of our time. Truly, we are privileged to be a part of it.
It goes without saying that the Freedom Tower is a project that is deeply felt around the world. We couldn't be more honored to be associated with Skidmore, Owings & Merrill on this. Together, we're part of making history, and we're very proud of that.
Good evening, everybody. How's everybody doing tonight? Yeah, how's everybody doing tonight? I thought people were going to be asleep and all tired because today has been a very long day. Here it is, almost 7:15 in the evening, and the faithful, the true, guys that want to get an Xbox are here. That's what you're here for, isn't it? Who cares what this guy have to say? He's just coming from Microsoft. I just want an Xbox. So It's a privilege for me to be here today. My name is Abel Cruz. I'm a technical program manager in the Developer Platform Evangelist Group at Microsoft Corporation, and that's a long word without taking a pause and breath. But I'm very happy to be here for several reasons. As Steve mentioned on the video, Autodesk and Microsoft has a very long-standing relationship, and the work that Microsoft and Autodesk have put together is seen every day on the lives that you touch with your work, whether you're being an architect, an engineer, a designer, or a developer on top of the Autodesk platform. Today we're going to be talking about some very exciting things about the technologies that we have with at Microsoft. And so I want to talk to you briefly about some of the things that we're cooking, that we're putting into the oven, and that more than likely you will be seeing in the near future in Autodesk products. First, I want to sort of give you the rules of engagement for tonight, if you will. First, I hate presentation and PowerPoints, so I'm going to try to fly through those as quickly as I can, and we'll just get down to the meat and potatoes of just showing you what these technologies look like and what the cool things coming up are. So we're going to do that with Vista, high level, then Office 12, and I think some of you will get a really good insight into the new UI and some of the features that we're putting into the next release of Office, called Office 12 for the moment. And then we're going to talk a little bit, very briefly, about some of the development tools that we have at Microsoft and how some of those development tools are being utilized by companies like Autodesk to create some better solutions for customers and individuals like yourselves, specifically around the Visual Studio tools for applications. But more importantly, and I should have started right from the bottom up, is fun and games. I know that you're here after a long day of a lot of classes and training, so we're going to try to make this very lively and interactive with everybody. And if you pay attention to the presentation that I have, and remember, it's going to be very, very quickly, so you have to really pay attention. You just may have the opportunity to, win an Xbox tonight. Those hard 360 Xbox, you might just get one. So let's get started with the presentation. So it's been 3 decades of Windows applications in the operating system, and more importantly, 3 decades of utilizing the Windows technologies in different areas of our lives. Back in the early 80s, it was mostly for geeks and nerds, like a lot of us are. But today, people like my 6-year-old daughter, for example, knows more about computing and how to use a computer than I knew back when I was a freshman in college. Because computing is everywhere. It's not just limited to those individuals in the high-tech industry or developers. It's everywhere. Kids run around with their cell phones running Windows programs on their cell phones, just pretty much the same way that I do, a smartphone or a Pocket PC, phone edition or a Pocket PC, an MP3 player, WMV or WMA player, down to your home, whether you have a Media Center Edition PC, and then for individuals like yourself, designers, architects, and computer professionals who use the Windows platform for different areas of your work and your life. So we have evolved tremendously over the last 30 years from Windows 1.0 all the way to where we are today on Windows XP. So one of the things that I want to talk about today is that next step. Where are we going next? So before we jump into that, I want to quickly ask you some questions. If you were to give me your wish list in terms of what are the things that you would love to be able to see in the next release of the operating system that will benefit you as a user of the platform as well as a user of Autodesk products running on that platform, what would that be? Can someone give me some quick ideas? Yeah, go ahead.
Will you include Office products in that?
Repeat that again?
Will you include Office products in that? You said
When when you say to include, you mean as part of the presentation that I'm going to have?
Part of that question you just
Yes, of course, yeah, yes.
Because Office 2002 provides us an ASC out. Unfortunately, 2003 Office does not provide ASC out. And as AutoCAD users, that's how we would input Word documents into AutoCAD.
Okay.
We cannot do that.
Okay, so that's a good point. You know, let's go to at a higher level, from the perspective of the usability of the platform and the applications. What are some of the things that you would really like to see an operating system do, for example? Say that again? Voice over IP, that's a great one. Collaboration. You know, some of you are, actually the majority of you are hardcore users of Windows. So I would imagine, and I'm not surprised by the type of questions that you're asking, because you're going down to the very specific feature that you would like to see down at the level. What about at the very high level? Let's take a look at some of the things that we have in mind for Windows Vista as that next step. Number one, confidence in the operating system. In terms of the ability to have users have a safe environment in which to work. So the concern of things like viruses and Trojan horses type of applications jumping into your system and taking over, deleting files. Wouldn't that be great? If you make a comparison between Windows 2000 and Windows XP in the number of issues with security and accessibility for the system, you will notice that the improvement between one version to the other are outstanding. Now imagine what we're going to be doing next on the next release of Vista. User experience, and we're going to get to see some of that in the demo, so I'm not going to spoil the topic by going over that too much here. Connectivity. Some of you already are experiencing the connectivity benefits that we have introduced in Windows XP, and we're going to make it even better in Windows Vista. Not just be able to connect when you're in your office or when you're at home, but what about connecting when you're on the train? When you're taking the ferry back, well, I guess in Seattle we have ferries, but you know, the ferry between, you know, Bainbridge Island and Seattle. Or what about when you're commuting from, you know, Seattle to, you know, across country, and you can actually make the connectivity on any device that you happen to have, whether it be your phone or your pocket PC or your laptop, etc. So those are some of the pillars that we're adding and making the enhancements on the Windows Vista platform. Everything that we have done as an improvement on the platform comes at a very fundamental level in everything that we have done. It's starting with the introduction of, I'm sorry, not the introduction, but with the continuation of the best development tools that we have available in the market today. Visual Studio, the next release, Visual Studio 2005. The new features of the .NET framework that make the ability for developers to use manage code in their application, all the way up the stack to web services for interconnectivity between different systems, whether the systems be running on our platform or running on a competitive platform, be Unix, IBM, Oracle, you name it. And a common communications language or protocol in the form of XML. So what are the investments or the core, and this is important if you catch my drift, what are the core investments that we have made into the Windows Vista platform? Obviously we have the core technologies at the base operating system services, things that all of us are familiar with, and we're going to see some of that in the next slide. But then built on top of that, three key pillars: the presentation layer, the data layer, and the communication layer. This next slide that we're going to see is not intended to be read by any of you because it's very hard to read, but it gives you the idea of the blocks or the building blocks that we have put into the new foundations, the presentation foundation, the data foundation, and the communication foundation on top of the base operating system services. So for example, let's take the first one, the presentation. We have created a unified method of now allowing developers to present rich and interactive user interfaces on the applications that takes advantage of not only rich text, but also 2D vector graphics, 2D animations, 3D graphics, 3D animations, sound, all combined in a unified development model that allows developers to take all these pieces and make a very rich and compelling user interface for end users, and we'll get to see that shortly. In the data side, the ability of being able to communicate or transfer data from one system to another, whether the system be running on the same machine or in the same network or across boundaries of networks. And using common and standard communication protocols as well as data exchange mechanisms. And the same with the communication foundation, communication pillar in terms of allowing users to be able to share information very easily, again, throughout all the different boundaries. The boundary of your own machine, your own intranet or network, as well as the extranet. So let's take the first one. The first one is called the Windows Presentation Foundation. And some of you may know this technology as Avalon. So Windows Presentation Foundation, again, it provides this unified development set of tools that allows developers to create a very rich and compelling environment, user interface environment, taking advantage of a lot of the things that normally would take thousands of lines of code to create simple 3D animations or 3D graphics or 2D vector information, down to a very common set of APIs that allow developers to take advantage of this. And from the developer's perspective, that's a great thing. But from the user perspective, which is where I assume the majority of you are coming from, then makes the experience and the usability of the softwares that get created with this type of technology much easier and productive to use. The Windows Presentation Foundation E, or Windows Presentation Foundation Everywhere, is really a subset of the Windows Presentation Foundation set of APIs and tools that allows the same rich and extensible user interface that you can take or create on the large platform like Windows Vista, Windows XP. You can actually do the same now with devices. So you will be able to create applications that have the same code base and simply recompile your application to run on a different device and still have very similar user interface and user experience. So the next one is Windows Workflow Foundation. And remember, before I continue, remember what I said at the beginning, that I was going to literally fly through some of the slides. And because first, there's not much time, and number two, I really want to actually get to showing you rather than talking about all the benefits that developers have in using this stuff, right? Because again, I apologize for the developers out in the audience today, but I'm concentrating the discussion around most the experience that the end user will have. So Windows Workflow Foundation is that second pillar that we saw on that diagram. The Windows Workflow Foundation is a great investment that Microsoft has done to enable developers to create Windows applications with workflow already embedded into the application. Let me give you a simple example. One of the things that is most common in any enterprise environment is to have individuals request vacation time. And typically, when you request vacation time, that vacation time needs to get approved by a manager or someone who can say, yes, you can go on vacation at this time or not. So if you think about that simple scenario, that scenario right there involves workflow. So imagine now that you can actually create the workflow structure right into a particular application, like let's say Outlook. I can look at my calendar, I can book the time, I can right-click on the calendar and say, book it for a vacation. That automatically may create a form that can just say, route it to my manager, and the manager gets a form saying, hey, your employee is requesting vacation for the next 3 months. Do you approve or disapprove of that? And if the manager wants to get rid of the employee, he will simply say yes, and we'll replace him with a temp employee and never see him again. So basically that's the concept of this investment that Microsoft has done in workflow, is in allowing developers of application to simply take the underlying core technology that is part of the platform and simply embed that into your own application to do customized workflow functions that apply to your particular scenario or industry. The last one is Windows Communication Foundation. And this one is a little bit more obscure for perhaps for individuals on this audience, but think of Windows Communication Foundation as the set of APIs and set of tools and components that are integrated into the platform, the Windows, or the WinFX, as we call it, WinFX architecture, that allows better and more reliable communication between both system components as well as individuals. In the side of the system components, it will be between processes, between applications, or between systems that are separated by network boundaries or large physical distances. And in the peer side will be between employees sharing information. And today, with the introduction and with the use of the Windows Communication Foundation technologies that we have put into the Vista platform, we now allow the developers of products like Autodesk products to enable some of that communication better among peers communicating or sharing or collaborating on a particular product, pretty much in the same way that was shown on the video earlier for the Freedom Tower. So we have 4 components of the architecture of Windows Vista or WinFX. We have the underlying system services or operating system services. We have Windows Presentation Foundation. We have or Avalon. We have the Windows Communications Foundation or Indigo, and the Windows Workflow Foundation, also known as WinOE, or used to be called WinOE. And all those pillars and components come to deliver on the fundamental goal of Windows Vista, which is have a number one, very secure environment where your information is private and confidential and no one can get to it. Number 2, make sure that it performs really well, and in an area where individuals like yourself using Autodesk products, performance is very, very key. You need to make sure that when you want to render 3D models of, let's say, an engine or a building or something, the performance is really there. And that is key in Windows Vista, because we actually take advantage of the technologies that manufacturers of the hardware are putting into place, much, much better than we did before. Number 3, reliability. The blue screens that we've seen in the past, back in the Windows 95, a little bit less on Windows 2000, even fewer on Windows XP, hopefully by the Windows time frame, will be basically null or something of the past. Deployment and services, this is something that IT folks within your organization will definitely love and enjoy, which is the ability to be able to deploy the operating system as well as upgrade specific applications or components down to the very, very small component that gets affected without having to reinstall everything or resend everything through the wire. So you can preserve bandwidth as well as do it in a more efficient and fast way. So when will you be able to get your hands on Windows Vista? Well, right now we are at the beta 2 timeframe. So some of you who already have access to MSDN already have been playing with Windows Vista for quite some time. Went through beta 1 and now beta 2. And if some of you in the audience who happen to be developers, if you went to the PDC or the Professional Developers Conference in Los Angeles back in October, more than likely you already have seen this. But the mainstream, the majority of the people that get Windows Vista either through your corporation or at the store will get that sometime in the second half of next year. However, you'll get the privilege to be able to see some of that here tonight. So let's switch to the demo machine number 1. And great, so the first thing that you notice on the UI is it's much cleaner. Notice the transparency that we have put in place for the components and the windows. Like, for example, notice the window here at the top. I don't know if you can see that very clearly. It's actually see-through on the menu bars. And then also notice the quality of the graphics. Windows Vista, as I said earlier, takes full advantage of the graphic processing unit that some of the newer computers are coming with. Computing power, it keeps increasing exponentially all the time, especially on the graphic side. And as such, Windows Vista is taking full advantage of some of those things. So in the case of usability, very nice 3D effects to be able to find your information faster without having to you still have the more traditional way of switching applications with the Alt-Tab control. But if you notice the interaction of the UI, which is the main thing that I wanted to show you on this particular part of the demo, it's very, very fluid, very easy to very easy to the eye. Now everything moves very smoothly. So that's a very quick and dirty look at how the UI in Vista looks like. So some of the new UI components are part of the operating system inherently. So let's switch to the second demo machine, where I want to show you then how Fluid, which is a company that makes web applications, has taken advantage of some of those technologies. So notice, and this by the way is not a it's not a web application. It's really a Windows application using Vista technologies. So the use of the Windows Presentation Foundation, or Avalon, is very, very predominantly used here. Notice the 3D effects of real-time video and audio playing on a 3D surface or carousel, each one of them independent of each other. So, for example, in this case, I actually, as you can see, I have a kiosk, if you will, that will allow users to very nicely go to a storefront on the web, for example, and be able to get information about products that are made by North Face, and get a very rich experience when they do so. So in here I click into one of the specific storefronts, if you will. As you can see, I click on the product description, and here's John telling me about his experience as a professional climber using the jacket that I want or that I'm interested in buying. So if we can put the volume up, you can actually hear John talking and telling me what is it that I want to know about this jacket in his personal experience. Very rich environment. Then I click to the product details, and then I get down into more details about the product itself. I get information about the material that the product is made of, and I get to see the jacket, you know, how it looks from the back, from the front, all in 3D. Now, the interesting thing about this is that you may think that this application, for example, may have taken months and months to create. Honestly, this demo application was done in approximately 3 to 4 weeks, the main core, and then some tweaks after that. So the total development time for this was anywhere from 6 to 7 weeks. And all these things that you see on the screen right now. So for example, these video clips that you see here under the expeditions, these are simply list box. And if you're a developer, you know what a list box is. It just so happens that we're telling each node on the list box to be a video or sound, or have this particular rendering characteristics. And the same with the colors down here. So as you can see, Avalon provides a very rich development environment for creating 2D, 3D, both graphics and video, all combined into one single environment and making it very easy and fast to develop. So anyway, let's go back to the presentation as we continue then talking about some of the other stuff. So that's Windows Vista. Again, very quickly, just to get you excited, just enough to get you excited. Let's talk about Office 12. The next release of Office, or Office 12, you have to think of it as a release that builds on the same paradigm that Microsoft used when the Microsoft Office products were combined into a single suite. The collaboration at that time was moved from a single from a single product to a multiple products and given to the end user so they can be more productive. No longer you were required to be a business analyst to use Excel, or you were no longer required to be a secretary to use Word, or you were not necessarily a program manager to use PowerPoint. You had all the tools available, and you as an engineer or an architect, you can just simply use them. Office system takes the same paradigm. Instead of being for the end user, now it's to the server side. And the investments that we have done in the Office time frame predominantly are the collaboration piece, the enterprise content management, which is very key for people that do designs, and then the knowledge discovery and insight, which I cannot emphasize enough, because it really, really helps individuals that are always looking for the right information at the right time. Example, you need to find who within your company may have created widget number A that has this particular specifications, because I need to reuse it for my design later on. And rather than having to go and start searching through file systems everywhere, you can simply type your search within your Office application and let the system go out and find the information and and bring it over to you, and you can just simply reuse it. Very key set of investments there. And everything is tied up around this server piece of technology that runs primarily on Windows SharePoint services, which some of you, or the majority of you, probably have seen. And then all the other components just plugged right into that, like collaboration, the portal, the search, the content management, and business processes, as well as business intelligence. All these things as a whole comprise the Office 12 server investment set of technologies. I don't have the time to go into any of these particular technologies in detail, but needless to say, you will be able to take that paradigm of collaboration from the individual level now to the enterprise and to the partner and to the world, because the collaboration investments that we have made in Office 12 go beyond your own infrastructure. So the Office 12 server technologies are basically these ones. We know about collaboration because you have used SharePoint services already, and you are familiar with Outlook and Word and Excel and how you can share information back and forth. But think about the next wave. ECM, electronic content management. Portal, very, very, very good. Search now is built in and integrated into the Office applications and into the operating system. Business intelligence, very good for business people. And project, the introduction of two new servers, the Excel server and the project server. I'm not going to talk about project server just yet, but think of it as project server, the project product, but running on a server where people can collaborate with the same data from multiple places. The interesting one for most of you, I would imagine, will be Excel. A lot of engineers, architects, and whatnot use Excel to input data about your drawings, about your the data of the design that you're creating. And every time that you wanted to do statistical analysis on that data, you needed to, and share that, you would take an Excel spreadsheet, you put in an Outlook, you'll send it out to 10 people, and then they will provide some type of a feedback on the data, and then you have to re-evaluate it and put it back all together and spend hours doing that. Well, what if you can just simply put all your data into an Excel spreadsheet that physically lives and it gets computed and updated automatically on the server? And then every time you make a change, the 10 people that you send it to, they all see the change automatically. Whether the file is open or closed, it doesn't matter. It gets automatically updated. Tremendous power on that. Office 12, very sold faster, that's the message. And I'm running out of time, so I'm going to fly through some of this stuff. So let's switch to the demo machine number 1 really quick. So first of all, there's 27 different applications in the Office 12 release. I'm only going to show you one, which is Excel. It's one that I feel that at least for this audience may have the most relevance. But keep that in mind, 27 different products. They're going to be bundled differently, used for different things, but the ones that you're already familiar with are going to be there, plus a whole bunch more. But take a look at this. They have a brand new UI at the top. This is something that is very, very interesting because the UI is actually smart enough to change based on the context that I have on the spreadsheet. Notice that at the very top, there's only one menu item, and it's the File menu. Everything else is under different tabs. Before, we had over 3,300 different commands buried under tons of different menus. And if you're honest with yourself, you would have to admit that you probably never got to use not even 5% of any of those 3,300 commands. Today, those commands are still there. However, we just make it easier for you to find and use properly. Let me show you really quick something about a very simple task that most of us do on a regular basis. I have a spreadsheet that happens to have numbers. And if I want to format this, I just simply could choose a predetermined format. If I don't like that, I can just simply pick another one. But if I want to show, let's say that this data really represents critical information about my data, I can see at a glance that these numbers here at the top are not doing very well. And if this was sales data, for example, or engineering data representing tolerance or whatnot, I can very quickly see at a glance that I have a problem there. Let's take that. I took a small segment of the data. I want to plot it out. Look at the 3D view of that, how nice and crisp and easy to read is. And if I don't like that, I simply have a big gallery from which to choose from. And if I don't like the gallery, I can always create my own. So let's go back to okay. Now, probably some of you have experienced the following. Notice the columns at the top, A, B, C, D, and so on. And then right underneath that I have my headers for all the different columns. So notice what happens when I start going down away from something is not working here. What's going on? Oh, don't you love demos? Well, I guess it's not working. Well, that's okay. But notice what I just did, how I added relevance data information right into the cell itself, where right now I have not only the green, yellow, and red light, but I also have a bar representing the number into the cell with a color specifically around there. Here's another nice feature that some of you may have seen in previous versions, but not necessarily being able to take full advantage of that, is the zoom button. Notice that I can zoom in and out by just clicking over here. And then the rest of the collaboration pieces that we talked about come into this application. Things like inspect document, restrict permissions to the document, signature, etc., etc. So again, new rich UI, a lot of great new features to make the use of the product much easier. The integration of the product with the rest of the server components in the back end make the next release of Office a tremendous release for us. And again, I'm barely scraping the surface, because I don't even have the time to show you Outlook or Word, the new format of the Office applications based on XML, which will make sharing documents across boundaries much easier, because you're not longer restricted to the Word format. If somebody else doesn't happen to have Office, well, I mean, you can just simply open it with any XML capable reader. So let's switch back to the presentation so we can continue. So on the last few minutes that I have, I want to talk about Visual Studio tools for application. So the very first question that pops to most people's mind is, why enable customization of the application? And a lot of you are familiar with VBA and how VBA allows you to create a sequence of commands or programmatically control AutoCAD or Vista or whatever of the Autodesk applications, where you can very easily create a set of commands that will expedite a particular process. Now, if you think about, that's a very simplified view of why people would like to automate applications or customize applications. So moving forward into the next wave of our platform, we have Visual Studio Tools for Application, which basically will take the VBA paradigm and move it to the very next level. It would allow individuals that are developers of components for, let's say, Autodesk components for AutoCAD or some of the other products, and make the extensibility of those applications much, much relevant to their particular environment or situation. It will allow to create ecosystems of components that can play together with that application in ways that could not be done very easily in the past. Let's do a very quick demo of what I mean, and let's switch to the demo machine number 2. So here I have a virtual machine running inside my Windows XP, but the main thing I want to show you, I have AutoCAD, a modified version of AutoCAD 2006, and I have a drawing that I want to open up. This is a little bit slow given the fact that I'm running on a virtual environment here, so you will have to bear with me just for a second. But what we have done in this demo version of Autodesk 2006 is basically show how using Visual Studio's tools for applications, we can very easily take information that we would normally don't have available into an Autodesk product like AutoCAD and expose information from a completely different system through Visual Studio Tools for Application. One very simple thing that a lot of engineers, architects, and designers do is they design the gadget that they want. In this case, I can't even remember what the name of this guy is, but it's a fictitious device. But one of the things that we would like to do is get comparative analysis in terms of how much will I have to pay or will cost me to do this design using vendor X or Y or C or material A, Y, or C. So for that, let's do a very good example of this. Here I select one of the components or one of the pieces of this gadget that I've designed, and then I want to say, I want to obtain a vendor quote. So the system automatically starts calling into the vendor system through the back end using the Visual Studio Tools for Application. And again, bear with me for a second because it's running on a virtual environment. But it will go and access the database that the vendor may have. And that database is more than likely not physically located in my network. So here comes the vendor quote request that is talking to my back-end system located across the globe or across the country. And I can simply say, well, this button, this for the off position, I have a few options. I can use steel housing or plastic or styrofoam housing, carbon fiber. Well, let's do it with plastic and see what kind of options do I have. So if I use the high performance this vendor called High Performance or Contalso manufacturer or Agni manufacturing, I have different costs. These are the investments. This is the inch square, the weight, etc. So I pick one, and I can simply paste that information right into my drawing based on the decision that I make. Something that normally will take a lot of time to do and a lot of effort otherwise is now much, much simpler to do by simply enabling within my own application, in this case AutoCAD, the ability to AutoCAD communicate with the vendor's database that has the quote information for the type of material or pieces that I need for the design that I'm creating. So it's something that a lot of people will definitely be able to take advantage of this. Let's switch back to the presentation so we can wrap this up. So, Visual Studio's tool for application. 3 main things that I wanted you to take away from this slide. Number 1, it will launch as part of the SDK. The SDK will launch as part of the Office 12 shipment. Why is that important? Well, it's important because it will allow individuals like yourself to take the extensibility of the applications that you currently use beyond what you have today with VBA, much, much further. Number 2, VSTA projects work with the Visual Studio Tools for Office. And if you're familiar with Visual Studio Tools for Office that we have available today for Visual Studio 2003, and now and soon available also for Visual Studio 2005, they work together. So if you have investments on Visual Studio Tools for Office, you don't lose that. And then also, Visual Studio Tools for Applications enables the developers and even yourselves as users of the product to deliver highly and easily customizable applications that in ways that were not possible at all before, not with VBA for certain. So, key takeaways. I'm already 3 minutes behind schedule for the main part of the presentation. Better user experience. You saw the look and feel of Windows Vista, the fluidity of the UI. You saw how using the Windows Vista technologies like Avalon or Windows Presentation Foundation, individuals can create in a very short amount of time very compelling presentations, very compelling applications that take advantage of the underlying core technologies in the hardware itself, as well as the performance of the new graphic processing units and CPUs. In the office space, productivity and collaboration. Think of the paradigm that you had before. It was just primarily collaboration for individuals at a very decentralized mode or model, now to a very centralized model of collaboration and productivity. Allowing people to do more in less time and more with less stuff. And then the last piece for the Visual Studio Tools for Applications is application extensibility and flexibility. The ability for you to customize your application to work in ways that you could not do before in a very, very easy and fast way. I know that we cover a lot of stuff at a very high level, and I know some of you are dying to know more about this stuff, but unfortunately the time wouldn't allow us for diving deep into some of these things. However, I'll be more than happy to have some Q&As after this very next section, which basically it is the giveaway, which is why we're here for anyway. I know all of you are falling asleep. It's like, will this guy get over with all that stuff? So here are the rules. Number 1, there will be 3 questions. I only have 3 giveaways. You'll raise your hand, and I'm sorry, I just will make a executive decision and just pick someone and say, you please give me the answer if you have it. If the answer is correct, you get it. If the answer is correct, I pick somebody else to give the opportunity to that somebody else to provide the answers to the question. At the end of the 3 questions, please, if you won the giveaway, please make sure that you come to the front and talk to myself or talk to Alex, which is right here in the very first row, and we'll get your contact information and ship the Xbox 360 directly to your home, so you don't have to carry that stuff with you from here. So, everybody clear on that? Nobody's clear. Nobody wants this stuff. We should keep it for ourselves. Yeah, we can keep 2. 1? Okay. Just give away 1. Okay. Okay, so let's get started. Now I can lose my voice, so I can raise my voice and get excited, because this is the portion that I really, really like. Who cares about it? Anyway, number 1. What are the 4 foundations of the WinFX architecture? And I saw a very first hand back there, so a gentleman in the middle. And you can shout the questions. You don't have to wait for the mic.
Presentation, data, workflow, and communication.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Presentation, data, workflow, and communication.
No. Gentleman back there had, right there, yeah. I'm sorry. No, the gentleman back there. Yeah, you.
System services, communication, data, and presentation.
The gentleman just won a Xbox 360 back there. Great job. Question number 2. These are easy, guys. I mean, if you were paying a little bit of attention, you should know. Name 3 end user. Well, I haven't even finished the question, and I see a hand way in the back. 3 end user benefits of the Windows Presentation Foundation. Way in the back. And shouted. Don't wait for the mic. There we go.
Presentation, data, and communication.
Right here in the front.
Clear, confident, and connected.
Clear, confident, connected. The gentleman just won another 360 right here. Some of you were actually taking notes. That's great. I think I'm convinced that these guys just came for the 360s. I mean, I'm convinced of that. Question number 3. Oh, by the way, before we jump into question number 3, right after this, for the remaining of the time that we have, want to open it up for Q&A for about maybe 5 to 10 minutes, open Q&A. So, question number 3. 3 end user scenarios where you can use Workflow Foundation for the end user. Right here.
Get quotes from manufacturing.
And shout it.
Get quotes from manufacturing.
Quotes for manufacturing.
Share your data with your clients.
Share your data with your clients. How?
By using DWF and publishing it or sending it across the web or email with Outlook.
There we go. DWF. I forgot to mention that one during the presentation. I'm glad you did. What's the last one?
Well, you got me all off track right now. You can schedule your meetings with your Autodesk representatives using Outlook over the web.
There you go. Give the gentleman a hand. 3 winners. Thank you very much for your time. Open for Q&A. We have 5 to 10 minutes if you have any questions. If you want the 360s, just come over to the front and we'll do it. What? Yeah, otherwise I'll keep it. I need one for the downstairs of my home.
So are these core systems? Or?
Talk to the guy. He's the one.
I have one question about Office 12, actually.
Yes.
The cool context-sensitive